You had coached Duke lacrosse in the 60s and 70s. How did it feel personally when all that stuff was going on a couple of years ago? What was your initial reaction?
First of all, I was very surprised to hear about it because that's not, what Duke lacrosse is all about. And I knew Mike Pressler, the coach, was close to the program, as close as you can be, being 3.5 hours away.
Right.
One of his, a guy that coached with me at that time, had retired and was working with the team kind of in an honorary, unofficial position, and told me they'd gone out to California playing a tournament that weekend. They came back and school was on spring break. And Mike Pressler met with the team after they got back in Durham. He said, all right, this is what our schedule is for spring break. We got a lot of big games coming up. We got a lot of work to do. Laid out the schedule, when practices were, and told him, he said, now, don't get into trouble because you're not going to classes, behave yourselves, etc. And that was like on Monday, and Wednesday night they had the party. But I think which was bad, and bad choices by the players, shouldn't have done it. Not that fraternity guys and other people do things like this, but this was too big a deal and too important for them to be messing around with something like that. They had bigger goals and that they were trying to achieve. Win the ACC championship, go to the national championship. And it was a shame. But there's so many stories behind it that really never came out in the paper. They were talking about this underage drinking at the party. Well, they sent all the freshmen home before things got out of hand.
Right.
And I know one of a couple of players who had relatives there on the team, they weren't even around.
Yeah.
Met a woman who was the parent of one of the Duke players at an alumni meeting in Wilmington when President Broadhead came down to meet with the alumni club and explained and talked to what happened, among other things. And she said, my son and his girlfriend were at the movie that night, weren't even at the party, and yet when the police asked for the women to pick out who was causing the problems and who were they pointing the finger at, they got showed a team picture.
Right.
And she said, they could have pointed at my son as well as the guy next to him.
Right.
I mean, they just kind of, that's no way to, a lineup is picked from a team picture. Mm-hmm. Another story was the girls actually, the two of them, left the party and then came back. Excuse me. And then just all these crazy things that happen. And then the outside, of course, all of a sudden it was a big to-do was made up because it's a private university. Mm-hmm. It's expensive to go to school there. It became a racial thing, black, white.
Yeah, in a city with a lot of history about that.
With a lot of problems, mm-hmm. and a big minority population. And they had a district attorney that would stoop to do whatever it took to get reelected.
Right.
Even when he didn't have the evidence, he was being pressured by the black community, by the press. University president was being pressured. A lot of faculty members were upset with what happened. Didn't like the idea that Duke University's name was being dragged through the mud.
Right.
So there were a lot of reactions, and some of the reactions, and I think, were premature. Mm-hmm. And Mike Pressler was the bone they threw the dog to get all the outside influence and the press to take the pressure off, take the lid off the pot that's boiling. Right. And he paid the price.
Yeah. Would you say that's probably one of the overriding lessons is, I guess, innocent until proven guilty? It seemed that was kind of almost bypassed.
No question about it.
Yeah.
And I think it was a rush to judgment.
Right.
And I think, and President Broadhead took a lot of criticism, and I think justifiably so. But the thing was really boiling, and the campus was inundated with media and press and outsiders, and it was disrupting the campus life.
Yeah.
And Nifong probably broke about every rule in the book that any person that's an attorney, and a district attorney in particular,
Yeah.
and the way he went about conducting the investigation and withholding evidence, and then, Mike Pressler got caught in a situation where Joe Levy, the athletic director, had a meeting with him at the direction of President Broadhead, and basically read him the Riot Act, and Mike's trying to make the case that, what you see now is not all it meets the eye, and was going through all the reasons why they need to wait, and DNA hadn't come back yet, haven't proven anything, when it finally did, and Nifong withheld it as long as he could before he gave it to the defense, there was no DNA evidence that any of the guys were involved. And he said, and Pressler told the leader that if you just wait, the truth will come out. And the title of Mike Pressler's book is "It's Not About the Truth," and that's what he claims. And I wasn't there, so I'm just telling you from what I've read, that Oliva told him, Mike, it's not about the truth.
Right.
They needed a scapegoat.
Perception, yeah.
And a perception is there that it was out of control. And I think at Duke, like a lot of places, high schools, prep schools, other universities, lacrosse players are kind of unique in their own way. Not making an excuse, because what they did was 100% wrong.
Right.
No question about it. But they walk around a little, some of them, not all of them. They're not all prep school kids.
Right.
A lot of kids were there that didn't come from rich prep schools, came out of public high schools. But the Duke team had gotten a reputation of playing hard, playing very successfully. They did very well academically. Kids all graduated, had some of the highest GPA any teams on campus, and they partied hard.
Yeah.
And that was their Achilles heel. They should have known better, should have had better leadership from their teams. But I'll tell you an interesting story that convinced me that the Duke players were innocent. I was up there, that was the spring of 2006 when it happened. And that's when they brought in John Danowski, who was the head coach at Hofstra. And I was up there on campus that fall, and before this thing had been settled. And I was talking to Kirsten Kimmel, their very successful women's coach. And I said, I understand, first I congratulated her on getting to the Final Four with the women's team. And I said they really played well. I said they understand they created a little controversy because they were wearing bracelets.
Yeah.
That
supporting the guys, kind of.
Supporting the three players.
Yeah.
And the NCAA rules say you're not supposed to have anything that is not part of the official uniform. And these are those bands like Live Strong, that Lance Armstrong.
Yeah.
And these said innocent, and the three numbers of the three players. And she said, well, it was a girl's idea. And she said, here, would you like some? She gave Jane and I a couple of, and I have them upstairs in the museum. And she said the girls wanted, that was their idea. They wanted to wear those wristbands because they believed so much that that team was innocent. She said, we share the same facilities, the playing field, the administration, the locker room building, and everything else. We have brothers and sisters on the team. Some of them date each other. They went over to Raleigh on their own, with the coach knowing about it, but got a bus to go over and be in that courtroom when they had the trial. Just like the men's team had done it, but the women had done it. And I walked out of the office like, Jane, these two girls, like most college girls, are pretty sharp.
Yeah.
And they're athletes, and they're with these guys all the time. If they thought there was any question that the so-called victims were correct in their accusations. There's no way they would be wearing those bracelets.
Yeah, that kind of steered me in the direction of this next question. It seems like a big part of an athletic director's job these days is to be like the chief PR guy, you know, kind of maneuver, or not manipulate, but kind of like get them, you know, get the school's image out into the media in a positive.
Well, I don't think there's any doubt that a viable athletic program, whether it's a high school level or the college level, it gives the school, university, high school, great exposure. I've never said it's the most important thing. Certainly not important. As important as having a good library or good faculty, good academic programs. But they're not. Their job is not to. Their job is to research and teach, which is what college and high school is all about.
Right.
And university athletic programs have the ability to put the school's name in the paper, even if they don't want it in the paper.
Right.
To attract alumni, attract donors, attract friends, fans, and get people excited about the athletic program, whether it's at Carolina or South Brunswick High School, wherever it might be. But because there's that ability to do that, there's a lot of pressure on them to really make sure they're running a clean ship.
Yeah.
Whether the players are in good standing with the school, academically, and rule-wise, and rules and regulations, their local conference rules and regulations, the NCAA, if it happens to be the college, at the college level. They have to make sure they're making progress on a degree. They have to make sure they're really keeping their nose clean because the spotlight is on.
Yeah.
I mean, they're walking down the street, whether it's Southport or Chapel Hill or Durham or Wilmington, and a lot of people know who they are. They may not know who is around, and of course in this day and age, everybody's got a camera on their phone and everything. I think a lot of people have, you know, whether you're Ben Roethlisberger with the Steelers or someplace else, realize that you get captured.
Yeah.
And your picture gets taken. And so there's even more pressure on them. You can't cover up something.
Right.
And we used to say amongst the directors, you know, all this good publicity is great, but the first thing we do when we get up in the morning and we pick up the sports page, if we don't see our name in the paper, it's probably going to be a good day.
Yeah, right.
You don't, you know, you almost get so, you get a little leery that don't want to see your name because it could be some
DUI arrest or whatever. Yeah.
Or it could be some fan who's not even an alum, not even a friend of the university, does something, gets one of your kids in trouble.
Yeah, right. And I feel like with Duke, one of the hardest things for them, and probably for any school that's been in a similar situation, is to kind of drag your name out of the mud. Mm-hmm. Maybe say like even Tennessee athletics or like Carolina football, they're gonna have to go through these same things.
Right.
They were guilty, but Duke, you know, almost was proven guilty by the public opinion. So, how difficult is it to kind of shrug that label off?
Well, I think it is difficult. The fact that they didn't break any rules and regulations,
right,
other than showing very poor judgment.
Right.
I mean, and that's something that only time's going to take care of, because in some people's minds, it's out there.
Yeah.
There's less of it now than it was 5 years ago. And then the onus that the director and the administrative staff has to impress upon the coaches and everybody in the athletic department, whether you're in the ticket office, whether you're in the compliance office, whether you're in the PR office, is we're running a clean ship. We're going to do it the right way. And our athletes, our student athletes, live in a glass house.
Yeah.
And better not be out there doing things that people are going to bring a bad name to themselves and to their university.
Yeah.
And the same thing holds true at the high school level.
Yeah.
It's no different. Just college level, it's a little more expansive and more nationally rather than just locally. And I think the onus is on these athletic departments. The problem now in some of these universities, athletic departments has gotten so big.
Right, they're almost like separate.
Yeah, I mean, they got so many people working in so many different categories, whether it's with the football program, the basketball program, baseball program, track program, strength. I mean, the athletic departments are huge.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really hard to have 24/7 control over these kids.
Yeah.
Or even over your staff.
Right. Or even the people on the fringe, the car dealerships or the tattoo.
Yeah. I mean, you don't have any. You have any control over them.
Right.
Duke has never had athletic dorms because they believed that the students needed to be part of the student body, mm-hmm. and that they need to be assimilated in, so their roommates and their friends, at least a lot of them, are just out of the general student body. Now, obviously, basketball players will hang with basketball players, etc., or fraternity brothers, as the case may be. But they don't have. But and that philosophically, that's good, and I think that's what a lot of us believe in. They ought to be part of the student body. I mean, they get a lot of special treatment as it is. But you lose control when you don't have athletic dorms. Right. Not that solves the answer 100%. But if you've got an athletic dorm and your athletes are living under the watchful eye of graduate assistants and everybody else, you have better control. Not 100%, but at least you know if they're in their rooms at night and etc.
Yeah.
But in this day and age, the students want that freedom, and they don't want to be under somebody's thumbnail 24/7. So you worry a lot, and you can preach all you want. You can preach as an administrator, preach to the coaches and staff. The coaches can preach to their student athletes, and lay out what the rules and regulations are. But the kids are human, and sometimes either on their own volition or because there's some other people who are trying to make a buck off them,
right,
or get them into trouble, or agents get involved, and these kids make some wrong decisions.
Right. Okay, well, thanks for talking with us today. That's all I got.
You're welcome.
All right.
Answer all your questions for you?
Yeah, you sure did.